Thank you, Excellency. My name is Edmund Kajira. I work for Kigali Today. My question is on the Great Lakes region. Your Excellency, as you might know, there's a situation in DRC, Eastern DRC particularly. This morning there was a hashtag trending saying "Save Mulenge." So it appears there's a group of people who are being attacked by some negative groups operating in Eastern DRC. Your Excellency, as we know, there is an initiative which was started by President Tshisekedi to work together to eliminate some of these groups that operate in Eastern DRC. So I wanted to get an update from you in as far as this cooperation is concerned. And also on the East African community, Your Excellency, there seems to be a lull in the relationship between the EAC partner states. We haven't had a heads of state summit in recent months. What's happening in the region and the relationship with Uganda notwithstanding, what are you doing to ensure that regional integration remains on course? Thank you, Excellency.
For the situation in Eastern Congo, the southern part of Eastern Congo, in Minembwe areas, I've heard about it, I've read about it. But the story of the new president president of DRC having brought up the idea of neighboring countries working together to address security issues was welcome, good news. But it's not just to address one problem and not the other. The approach was to look at the whole history of these problems of insecurity and different non-state groups that have been roaming the region and causing insecurity, and how we can deal with them as countries, especially working together. And there have been meetings bringing together the chiefs of the national armies of these neighboring countries and the security organs. They've been working even with the UN that is in the Congo, so that they can formulate how to work together, address all these problems that cause insecurity. Again, there are different ideas that come up, some of them, so they keep narrowing the gaps that are there in the understanding of how to deal with the situation, or even what to deal with in the situation. I think largely there is progress, but of course, on the other hand, unfortunately, the problems go on, and these problems take people's lives. So the DRC government, president wanted to address that problem of Minembwe, but the Minembwe problem involves different groups from different countries. So the best way to approach it was not to go it alone, and I think they were right to say countries should get together and first of all raise what each country to raise what they are concerned with, and then together work on each problem so that gives us a better chance to eliminate the problem than if each one pursued their own problem or worked alone. So that is still going on. Hopefully, it will not continue to take many lives as I have heard it is in Minembwe areas. If we can find a way of arresting the situation, the sooner the better. For the East African community integration and progress. One, I think the East African community has made good progress, is continued to make progress. And people are right to say the progress is slow. I wish we could move faster myself. I wish we could be over with many things that still stand in the way of us getting where we want to be. But again, integration is not just something automatic. Integration means different entities coming together for a common cause, and naturally people will start seeing things differently. It doesn't matter whether they are right or wrong, but that happens. It's natural. That people will sometimes bring non-issues or create problems where they were not. But that's what happens with the people and with the politics and the interests. People. So the task of all of us to achieve broader and deeper integration is to keep working at it and making sure we understand fully that integration, you've got to give something, you've got to get something, and you've got to not just think about yourself and what you have in it, but you've got to be having some level of thinking for others as well and what they benefit from it. And then overall, really the benefits. If we have a population of 160 million people who, after all, have more in common than the differences they have, working together, and this is a huge force, both politically, economically, socially, name it. There's no question about it. So if we keep that prize in sight and focus on it, on 60 million people together, the strength, the benefits, the progress, and then continue working on the differences. We may have some of them that make sense, others don't make sense. Most of them don't make sense. But if you have concerns that make sense, then people still sit down and talk about it and find a way around it so that you get what you want, I get what I want, all of us get what we want. It's not an easy task. For me, I understood it from the beginning that integration doesn't mean you walk in and you have everything you want about it where it didn't exist. So we are very conscious of that fact that things don't work in that straightforward fashion as you would wish. Now, about the meetings and so on. Actually, the meeting, or the lack of meetings, as you said, shouldn't be even an indication of any problem. The problems are somewhere else. It's not because the meeting has not taken place. The problems are these ones I'm talking about, which happen or may not happen. Whether you have had as many meetings as the number of months you have in a year. But the meeting will happen, and it has all along been designed. In fact, the official summit is always designed to be there once a year. And all along towards this year, it was supposed to be in November. And it is going to be in November. Towards the end of November, we are going to have an EAC summit. We have even had before 2 years without a summit. But might have had reasons. But for this year, we have a summit, which was intended for November. We are still in November. And we're going to have a summit. But between the summits, many other meetings take place involving the ministers, different heads of institutions, of partner states. And those meetings have actually been going on to streamline things that are going to be tabled for the November summit. So, and then you mentioned something about Uganda.
Yes, I mentioned, I said, Your Excellency, that perhaps this would be an opportunity for you to give us an update on the implementation of the Rwanda agreement.
Oh,
Thank
okay. I'm not going to repeat the problems we have had. I think I had time to have lengthy discussion around it, and many people have followed and made their own minds about what the issues are and the possible ways they can be resolved. But at one point, it came to having the leaders of the two countries meet, discuss how we can resolve whatever issues at hand. That resulted into two meetings we had in Angola. And the second meeting resulted into a package of some understanding and commitment we can make in resolving the issues. And following that, there was a meeting in Kigali, bringing together Rwanda's officials and Uganda's officials to talk about what needed to be done. I think that meeting went well, and again, there was supposed to be another meeting 30 days after that in Uganda. I think the 30 days were supposed to have 16th of October. It didn't happen. Maybe for, I don't know, I'm not fully knowledgeable about why it didn't happen, but I'm fully aware that it didn't happen. So I think there is another, now instead of that, then in fact, after the 16th of October, we learned that another date, wait a minute. The official communication about the meeting that was supposed to be taking place on the 16th of October, now being suggested for 13th of November, did not reach us until we read it in the papers. Then after reading it in the papers, we received the official letter. Well, that has its own meaning, which I know, again, I'm not very knowledgeable about. But nonetheless, when it was approaching the 13th of November, we haven't reached there yet, right? Sometimes I forget which month we are in, so. we got another indication that it may actually not be now taking place on the 13th of November. It might be when? Which? 18th. So we are okay with that, with whichever dates anybody, for whatever good reasons they have, they suggest. Or even if anyone comes up and says, you know what, we don't need any meeting, we will respect that. But for sure, the meetings were supposed to resolve the outstanding issues that have created a misunderstanding between. But one important thing I would wish to talk about that originated from the previous meeting that took place here and is likely to be an issue whenever the meeting takes place, or even if it doesn't take place, that still remains an issue, is the origin of this problem. Having been, I think, you've been aware of all kinds of accusations flying here and there, but at least for us, the origin is having people whom we have seen on trial with the judiciary, who have been fomenting trouble inside the country, neighboring countries, and having a connection and origin with otherwise brother neighbor. And we talked about that well before. We discussed it, we raised it with Uganda. There was always denying there is no connection on that, until you have people who actually who are in custody, who are going through the courts of law, who are even providing evidence, because they've been a part of that whole instability that was aimed at us. Then the second problem being the Rwandans who have been arrested over a long period of time. You are aware of people, because some of them have been released, it has been on camera, it's not fake news, it's real. People have received them at the border, and they tell the stories of how some of them have been in prison for 2 years, 10 months, 9 months, 6, a month, 6 weeks. And the story is consistent with all of them, of how they are arrested. One, they say they were in Uganda illegally. Or initial story we had been told, these people are arrested because they are spies, meaning Rwanda is interested in knowing things in Uganda. Of course, the implication is Uganda is not interested in knowing things in Rwanda. So the spying is one way. I have not known history that tells me that you have that situation happening one way, if it were to be true. But that's okay. That we shouldn't take much time on that. But then the issue also became, okay, if you have people who you think are there illegally or have committed crimes or are spying, and do you really arrest people, pile them up in their hundreds, and you fail to put one, even one, in the court of law and have them charged and tried? Just even one out of 100. So the moment that you say you cannot do that, or you are not able to do that, it tells a different story. And this has always been our concern. We have always heard them say, we respect your sovereignty, we respect your institutions, but you are arresting Rwandans, and the reasons you are giving don't add up. From the beginning, from the first group they arrested. But we also told our brothers and sisters there that we actually know the story that where these arrests originate from, and even the source. It's the same people that we have arrested who are here, the same organizations that are operating in our neighboring countries and beyond, that because they are of association with this country, they started saying, you know, these Rwandans know that we are here, or they have accused you of us operating here. How do they get the information? They must be getting information by having Rwandans who come here knowing this story. And then they are the ones who started showing the government institutions there. You see somebody and say, this man must be working for government. This man is not your friend. You know, even some, in fact, what is interesting is that some of them, and even the ones we have here, or those who have been released, they were arrested after some people had approached them to recruit them into these organizations, these rebel groups, and they refused. When they refused, then the punishment is, okay, you are refusing because you are with the government. So then they tell the security people that this must be an agent of Rwanda. And but from the beginning, we had told people that, in fact, you know also that we advise our people not to travel to Uganda for the very reason we have had relatives of these people who are arrested, who have been arrested, coming to government institutions and saying, no, we've got somebody missing when they went to Uganda for this, we got this. Then. So I said, but we raised it with the Uganda government through the embassy and foreign affairs there in Uganda. Every time we got such a complaint, we raised it. Every time we raised it. There are hundreds of them. And then we told Rwandans, we see, when it comes to you people being arrested in Uganda, there is little we can do about it, other than raising it with the government institutions and the government. And the response we get all the time is that these people have gone there to do wrong things, and they have been incarcerated, and nothing. So there's nothing. So the only advice we can give others whose family members or friends have not been arrested is just don't go there. But we continue to tell Ugandans that they are free to come here whenever they want. If they don't want to come, still we have no quarrel with anyone. So I don't know, maybe I gave you too much more than you really asked for, but the story adds up to a fact that, yes, the efforts have been there, we are still pursuing them, but they may not be. Oh, but something happened. Immediately we had this meeting here. A few days after the meeting had taken place here, I think they released a number of people. Also, by the way, when I say they released, they don't officially hand them over. No, they bring them in the middle of the night and and then dump them across the border. But in the same period, there is, I think, 30 something, some number at over 30, less than 40. But at the same time, arrested others after that. So it has been released, arrested, released, arrested. And then, of course, that, by the way, has, because we were discouraging people to go to Uganda, something that initially was for a different reason when the Gatuna border and some border areas were, the traffic was very slow because it was being worked on, the road was undergoing construction. But then that now ended up, mixed up in the situation. It's like, if the traffic going this side, you are arresting people much as we allow people to come over here. So this border point and some other border points remained things going slow or closed down already. But we have other border lines operating, Kagitumba, Chanika. So, and then the demand from the other side is you must open the borders. And they say, yeah, we will open the borders, but how about the origin of the problem? You want to open the borders, but the borders which will only be one way. They can't be, the other ones who use it, you arrest them. So why don't you just, because if you are talking about trade, you want to open the borders, but you arrest people using the border points. So do you want goods to just move like these driverless vehicles? They just cross the border without people. It's going to be difficult to find sacks of beans moving on their own without people on the road is going to be difficult. So anyway, it's some kind of mess which I believe and still believe we can sort out. We should be better than this. We know better than this. We should be better than this. We can definitely do better.